If you press that barrel against his temple, Sungmin, you cross a line even my legal shields cannot hide you from. Lower the weapon. Now. Abena's voice did not shake. It never shook. She stood in the doorway of the dimly lit penthouse office, her posture regal, her tailored emerald suit sharp against the shadows of the room. She didn't look at the rival gang lieutenant kneeling on the marble floor, bruised and trembling. Her amber eyes were locked entirely on her husband, the undisputed kingpin of the Kong syndicate. Sungmin didn't move immediately. His jaw tightened, the veins in his neck bulging against the elaborate dragon tattoo that crawled up from his collarbone. To the criminal underworld of Seoul, he was a monster, an untouchable, ruthless god who ruled through fear and absolute control. But as Abena stepped fully into the room, her heels clicking softly against the floor, Sungmin's fingers subtly twitched on the grip of his gun. The absolute authority he projected to the world began to fracture from the inside out, a slow, internal collapse that only she could trigger. He hated how much power she held over his breathing, how a single look from her could stay his hand when blood demanded blood. He breached our northern shipping lines. Abena, Sungmin said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp that vibrated with restrained fury. He turned away from the prisoner, refusing to let his men see the way his eyes hungrily traced the silhouette of his wife. In my world, that requires an execution. If I show weakness, the syndicate elders will see a target. And in my world, an execution without a paper trail is a one-way ticket to a federal penitentiary, Abena replied, walking past him without a hint of fear, her hand lightly brushing the edge of the desk just inches from his. The proximity was agonizing. They were close enough to feel the heat radiating from each other's bodies, yet neither made a move to close the gap. I didn't spend 5 years rewriting your corporate infrastructure and building international shell companies just for you to throw it away over a low-level thief. Sangwoo, take the prisoner downstairs. He belongs to the legal team now. The silence that followed was thick with 5 years of unspoken promises, dangerous secrets, and a slow-burning attraction that had never been allowed to fully ignite into the open. When Sungmin had fled to London half a decade ago, bleeding out and betrayed by his own flesh and blood, it was Abena, a brilliant international corporate attorney from one of the most powerful, aristocratic families in Ghana, who had pulled him from the dark. She hadn't blinked at his tattoos or his violent past. She had healed him, and then she had given him the legal armor to return to Korea and reclaim his throne. She was his brilliant architect, his shield against the government, and the woman he secretly worshipped in the quiet, terrifying spaces of his mind. Sungmin stepped closer, closing the distance until he was towering over her, his dark eyes burning with an intensity that would have terrified any other human being. You risk a lot coming into my interrogation rooms, Abena. The elders are already whispering. They say I am becoming soft. They say I let my foreign wife dictate the laws of the Kong syndicate. Abena tilted her chin up, refusing to back down an inch. Her gaze met his with unyielding strength, though internally, her heart hammered against her ribs at his sudden proximity. Let them whisper. Without my family's offshore legal firms and the trusts I established in London, every single one this syndicate makes would be seized by the state prosecution within 48 hours. You rule the streets, Sungmin, but I rule the foundation you stand on. Do not mistake my desire for your safety as submissiveness. Sungmin's gaze dropped to her lips, his chest rising and falling heavily. He wanted to reach out, to wrap his calloused, blood-stained hands around her waist and pull her against him until the chaos of his world faded away. But he didn't. The rules between them were unwritten but ironclad. Emotional exposure in their world was a death sentence. He held himself back with an agonizing restraint, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the edge of the desk behind her. You think you are untouchable because of the paper shields you build, Abena. But you don't know the wolves I have to feed. My mother called a meeting with the traditional council today. Abena's expression remained frozen, but a subtle shadow passed over her eyes. She knew what that meant. Madame Kang's hatred for her was no secret. To the matriarch of the Kong family, Abena was an unacceptable stain on their legacy, a powerful, wealthy black woman who refused to be broken or controlled by old-world Korean traditions. And let me guess, Abena whispered, her voice lowering into a dangerous, soft melody. She brought up Chaiwan again. Sungmin didn't answer immediately. His silence was an admission, a heavy weight that dropped between them like shattered glass. Chaiwan was the daughter of the most corrupt, high-ranking politician in Seoul, the woman Madame Kang had chosen for Sungmin long before he ever met Abena. My mother believes an alliance with Chaiwan's father is the only way to guarantee absolute immunity from the upcoming government crackdowns, Sungmin muttered, turning his face away as if ashamed of the words leaving his mouth. She thinks our marriage is a liability. A liability? Abena let out a short, humorless laugh, stepping back to re-establish the distance between them, though the loss of his warmth felt like a sudden physical chill. I have protected your empire from the highest courts in the world, Sungmin. If your mother wants a puppet daughter-in-law who will sit quietly and bow to her whims, she should have kept you in Korea 5 years ago. But you chose me to build your throne. Remember that. She turned toward the glass window, looking out over the glittering, rainy expanse of Seoul. The city looked beautiful from the penthouse, but to both of them, it was a golden cage filled with monsters waiting for a single moment of weakness. Sungmin watched her from the shadows, his internal turmoil deepening. He was the boss of the Mafia, a man who commanded thousands of soldiers, yet he felt entirely powerless against the quiet dignity of the woman standing by the window. The power imbalance was shifting, slipping away from his hands and into her silent custody, and he was completely, utterly terrified of how much he loved her for it. Before we dive in the next chapter of Abena and Sungmin's journey, I want to take a quick moment to welcome all of you to our storytelling family. I'm so incredibly grateful you are here sharing this deep, emotional experience with me. Whether you're listening from London, Lagos, Seoul, or right here in North America, your presence means the absolute world to me. If you are feeling the intensity of this forbidden romance, please take a second to hit that subscribe button, join our community, and leave a comment below telling me exactly where in the world you are watching from tonight. The dining room at the traditional Kong estate was suffocatingly quiet. Madame Kang sat at the head of the long wooden table, her posture impeccably straight, her traditional silk hanbok rustling softly with every calculated movement. Across from her sat Abena, whose elegance was a striking contrast in a vibrant, custom-tailored Ghanaian Kent accent dress. Sungmin sat between them, the atmosphere so thick with hostility that the air felt thin. The autumn gala is next week, Sungmin, Madame Kang stated, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she poured tea from a porcelain pot. She didn't look at Abena once. She hadn't acknowledged her presence since they entered the estate. The Minister of Justice will be attending with his family. Chaiwan has personally requested that you escort her to the opening ceremony. Her father is prepared to sign the final approvals for our new port development project, provided the family image is pristine. Sungmin's chopsticks paused midair. He didn't look up, but his voice carried a sharp, warning edge. Abena is my wife, mother. She will be escorting me to the gala. The port project's legal framework has already been secured by our firm. We do not need Chaiwan's father to validate our business. Madame Kong set her teacup down with a sharp click that echoed through the silent room. A legal framework is just paper, Sung Min. In this country, alliances are built on blood, tradition, and mutual understanding. The syndicate elders are uneasy. They look at your home, and they see no continuity. They see an outsider managing the wealth of ancestors. Chaiwan understands the burdens of a leader in Seoul. She has been raised for it. Abena quietly set her chopsticks down, her movements deliberate and calm. She looked directly at Madame Kong, her voice cutting through the matriarch's passive aggression with absolute clarity. With all due respect, Madame Kong, the wealth of your ancestors would currently be sitting in a government-frozen asset account if not for this outsider. Chaiwan's father may control the local ministry, but my family controls the international banking corridors that wash the very ink on your contracts. If you wish to discuss business, let us speak about numbers, not bloodlines. Madame Kang's eyes narrowed into slits, a dangerous flash of anger breaking through her polished facade. You speak boldly for a woman who does not understand the roots of this family. Sung Min is a dragon. A dragon cannot be chained to a foreign nest forever. Eventually, he must return to the waters he belongs to. Sung Min slammed his hand onto the table, the porcelain rattling violently. Enough, he growled, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and deep, internal panic. He looked at Abena, his eyes pleading for a forgiveness he hadn't even earned yet. We are leaving. As they walked out into the pouring rain toward the waiting limousine, the tension between Sung Min and Abena boiled over. The twin 5-year-old boys, Elijah and Jean Woo, were safe at home with their nannies, but the weight of protecting them from this toxic legacy pressed heavily on Abena's chest. Inside the dark, confined space of the leather seats, Sung Min reached out, his hand hovering just an inch above hers, desperately wanting to close the distance, but he stopped himself, his fingers trembling with restraint. Abena, look at me, he whispered, his voice cracking in the darkness of the car. My mother's words mean nothing to me. I don't care about Chaiwan. I don't care about their traditions. You know why I brought you here. You are my heart. Abena kept her face turned toward the window, her reflection showing a single, silent tear that she quickly wiped away before he could see it. Is that what I am, Sung Min? Your heart? Or am I just the brilliant lawyer who keeps you out of cell? When we are in your office, you look at me like you want to tear down the world for me. But when we stand before your family, you hide behind silence. You let her slice me with 1,000 words, and you expect me to be satisfied with your secret devotion. I'm trying to protect you. Sung Min erupted, his voice a desperate, tortured plea that filled the vehicle. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek, his eyes wide with an emotional vulnerability he had never shown to another living soul. You don't understand the pressure from the elders. They are threatening a mutiny. If I don't show compliance with the political factions, they will target you. They will target our boys. I have to play their game until I can eliminate them. I am suffocating, Abena. Every single day, I am tearing myself apart to keep you safe. Abena finally turned her head, her face inches from his. The air between them was electric, heavy with an unresolved desire that had been building for 5 long years. She could see the genuine agony in his eyes, the way his ruthless Mafia exterior completely dissolved when he was alone with her. She reached her hand up, her fingers stopping just a hair's breadth away from his jaw, mimicking his own agonizing restraint. Then let's see the monster, Sung Min, she whispered, her voice breaking with an intense, forbidden longing. Stop trying to protect me from the flames, and let us burn this city down together. But do not expect me to sit in the dark while you play the dutiful son to a woman who wants to erase me." Before he could answer, before his lips could finally find hers after years of waiting, the limousine came to a sudden, jarring halt. The privacy partition slid down, and Sang-woo's panicked face appeared. "Boss, we have an emergency. The Northern Warehouse District is on fire. The elders are calling an emergency meeting at Chaiwon's private club. They demand you arrive alone." Sung-min froze. The moment of raw connection shattered in an instant. He looked at Abena, his heart breaking as he saw the cold, familiar wall slide back over her features. He closed his eyes, a heavy, devastating sigh escaping his lips as he realized the Mafia world was pulling him back into the dark, away from the only light he had ever known. Before we dive into the next chapter of Abena and Sung-min's journey, I want to take a quick moment to welcome all of you to our storytelling family. I'm so incredibly grateful you are here sharing this deep, emotional experience with me. Whether you're listening from London, Lagos, Seoul, or right here in North America, your presence means the absolute world to me. If you are feeling the intensity of this forbidden romance, please take a second to hit that subscribe button, join our community, and leave a comment below telling me exactly where in the world you are watching from tonight. The silence that grew between Abena and Sung-min over the following weeks was a slow-acting poison. Sung-min began staying out until the early hours of the morning, consumed by the escalating gang war and the mounting pressure from the political factions. He convinced himself that by spending hours in private meetings at Chaiwon's exclusive VIP lounges, he was securing the alliances needed to crush his enemies and protect his family. But to Abena, his absence felt like a slow, deliberate retreat into the arms of the tradition his mother championed. She sat alone in the massive, quiet study of their penthouse, surrounded by financial ledgers, international wire transfers, and the deep, painful realization that she was losing the man she had built a throne for. She didn't track his phone. She was too proud for that. But the coldness in his eyes when he did come home spoke volumes. He would look at her with a profound, lingering guilt, his touch hesitant, his words sparse. The misunderstanding was growing like an unseen wall between them. He thought he was sacrificing his peace to keep her safe from a syndicate coup, while she believed he was slowly choosing his empire over his love for her. The breaking point arrived on a rainy Tuesday evening, the night of their twin son's 5th birthday. The penthouse had been decorated beautifully, the cake set out, the gifts piled high. Elijah and Jin-woo sat by the door, their little eyes wide with expectation, waiting for the heavy footsteps of their father. But hours passed, the candles melted down, and the children eventually fell asleep on the sofa, exhausted from waiting. Abena walked into the empty study, her heart heavy with an exhausting numbness. Sung-min's secondary phone, the highly encrypted device he used only for syndicate business, had been left behind on the desk in his morning rush. It lit up in the darkness, a notification blinking on the screen. It wasn't an alphanumeric code or a security alert from Sang-woo. It was an incoming video file from an unlisted number. With trembling fingers, Abena picked up the phone and unlocked it. The video began to play instantly, the high-definition screen illuminating her face in a harsh, cold glow. The camera panned across a luxurious, dimly lit bedroom, Chaiwon's private penthouse. The lens focused on a bed, where Sung-min lay asleep, his face pale with exhaustion, his bare chest revealing the sprawling dragon tattoo. Chaiwon herself stepped into the frame, her long dark hair falling over her silk robe. She looked directly into the camera, a cold, triumphant smile on her lips, and deliberately raised her hand to show Sung Min's signature dragon signet ring resting on her finger. A short text caption appeared beneath the video. He comes to you for duty, Abena. But he comes to me for peace. Let him go. Abena stood frozen in the center of the dark room, the phone heavy in her hand. Her chest didn't heave. She didn't scream or throw the device against the wall. The pain was so immediate, so lacerating, that it bypassed tears entirely, turning her blood to absolute ice. Her heart shattered into a million jagged pieces, but her brilliant, analytical mind, the mind that had outsmarted international prosecutors and dismantled rival cartels, went completely, terrifyingly cold. She looked out the window at her sleeping boys and then down at the ring on the screen. You took my love for granted, Sung Min, Abena whispered into the empty room, her voice a hollow, chilling promise. You thought because I protected you, I would allow myself to be humiliated. Now, I will remind you who built your throne. Before we find out how Abena responds to this devastating betrayal, I want to invite you to take a deep breath with me. This story is tearing my heart out to write, and I know you're feeling that same heavy weight right now. If you want to make sure you never miss an episode of this intense emotional journey, take a quick moment right now to subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications. It truly helps support the channel and keeps our community growing together. It was past midnight when the heavy oak doors of the penthouse finally clicked open. Sung Min walked into the living room, smelling faintly of expensive scotch, rain, and the unmistakable, suffocating scent of Chai Won's signature perfume. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his shoulders slumped under the weight of a man who had spent the last 12 hours signing away pieces of his soul to secure his family's safety. The house was dead silent, illuminated only by the faint silver moonlight filtering through the glass windows. Abena was sitting in the high-backed armchair in the center of the dark room, her posture perfectly straight, her eyes vacant and unblinking as she watched him enter. Abena, Sung Min rasped, his voice thick with fatigue as he stopped a few feet away from her. I'm sorry I missed the boys' cake. The meeting with the ministry officials. It ran over. There were complications with the port security. Did it run over in her bed? Sung Min? Abena's voice was calm, terrifyingly soft, cutting through the silence like a razor blade. Sung Min froze, the air instantly leaving his lungs. The exhaustion vanished from his face, replaced by a sudden, paralyzing terror. He watched as Abena slowly extended her arm and slid his secondary phone across the glass coffee table between them. The screen was still lit, displaying the frozen image of Chai Won wearing his signet ring. Abena, please, listen to me, Sung Min begged, his voice breaking completely, a sound of raw panic that no soldier in the syndicate had ever heard from him. It's not what it looks like. I didn't touch her. I swear to you on my life, I didn't touch her. My mother, she drugged my drink at the lounge. I woke up in that bed an hour ago, realized my ring was gone, and came straight home to you. It was a trap, Abena. They're trying to tear us apart because they know I am nothing without you. A trap. Abena stood up slowly, looking down at the ruthless Mafia boss kneeling at her feet with a mixture of profound pity and absolute disgust. You're the head of the Kong syndicate, Sung Min. You order executions without blinking. You navigate ambush after ambush in the streets. But you want me to believe that you were completely helpless against your own mother and a politician's daughter? You let them into our life because you were weak. You wanted to play their political games to protect your throne, and you thought I would be sitting here quietly, waiting for whatever scraps of affection you brought home. I did it for us. Sung Min yelled, tears finally escaping his eyes, tracking through the dirt and exhaustion on his face. He reached for the hem of her dress, his fingers trembling with a desperate, forbidden longing. The elders were going to kill you, Abena. They were planning an attack on the penthouse. I had to make them think I was aligning with Chai One to buy time to eliminate them. Everything I have done, every lie told, was to keep you and the boys alive. No, Sungmin. You did it because you forgot who I am, Abena said, her voice dropping into an icy, unyielding register as she stepped back, pulling her dress from his grip. You thought I was weak because I chose peace. You thought because I loved you, I would accept being your dirty little secret while you paraded a puppet for your mother's pride. You forgot that I am not your victim. I am your architect. I built the walls of your empire, Sungmin, and tonight, I'm tearing them down. She turned and walked out of the room, leaving the kingpin of Seoul alone on his knees in the dark, weeping into his empty hands as the rain continued to shatter against the glass. Sungmin didn't sleep a single second. He spent the remaining hours of the night pacing the empty study, his mind a chaotic blur of rage, guilt, and a terrifying sense of impending doom. By sunrise, the storm outside had cleared, but the real tempest burst through his doors in the form of Sang-woo, who didn't even knock before throwing the office doors open. His face was entirely drained of color, his hands shaking as he held a tablet. "Boss, we have a catastrophic situation," Sang-woo shouted, his voice cracking with pure panic. "The offshore accounts in Switzerland. They've been completely liquidated. The legal titles to our primary shipping ports in Incheon, the real estate holdings in Gangnam, the shell corporations we use in Hong Kong. They've all been legally transferred or frozen by an international court order." Sungmin's blood ran entirely cold. He surged up from his chair, grabbing Sang-woo by the lapels of his suit. "What are you talking about? Who transferred them? No one has the authorization codes except me, and—" He stopped, the words dying in his throat as the brutal reality hit him like a physical blow to the chest. He dropped his hand from Sang-woo and ran out of the office, sprinting down the hallway of the penthouse toward the master bedroom. The master bedroom was wide open. The massive walk-in closets, which just yesterday were filled with Abena's beautiful silks and custom dresses, were completely, devastatingly empty. He ran to the children's wing. The toys were gone. The small beds were unmade and bare. Abena and his twin boys vanished into the morning light without leaving a single trace. Abena's legal execution had been flawless, because every single asset of the Kong syndicate had been meticulously structured under her family's international legal network to shield Sungmin from government prosecution. She held the ultimate keys to the kingdom. Years ago, when she first drafted their marriage contract, she had woven an ironclad morality and infidelity clause deep into the legal fabric, disguised as a standard protection for foreign investor interests. By utilizing the video Cho-won had sent, digital, time-stamped evidence of his presence in another woman's bed, Abena had triggered an automatic asset forfeiture. Within 12 hours, the entire financial infrastructure of the Kong syndicate ground to a screeching halt. Without liquid cash to pay the syndicate soldiers, buy off the corrupt police chiefs, or fund the daily customs clearances at the ports, Sungmin's empire collapsed like a house of cards. The elders who had threatened mutiny suddenly found themselves broke and exposed to the prosecution. Chaiwan's politician father immediately retracted all promises of immunity, vanishing the moment the money did. Madame Kong was left frantic and humiliated, realizing her obsessive demand for a traditional match had utterly destroyed the legacy she sought to protect. But as Sungmin stood in the empty center of his 10,000-square-foot tomb, he didn't care about the lost billions. He didn't care about the syndicate or the ports. The absolute power he had spent his entire life fighting for felt like heavy, worthless ash in his hands. The power shift was total. He was no longer the untouchable dragon of Seoul. He was just a broken, lonely man who had sacrificed the only woman who truly loved him for an empire that didn't even exist without her. 2 weeks later, the intense heat of Accra, Ghana, hung heavy in the air. At the gated, luxurious estate of the powerful Asani family, the atmosphere was a world away from the cold, rain-slicked streets of Seoul. Abena stood on the wide veranda, watching her twin boys, Elijah and Jinwoo, running through the lush green gardens, their laughter echoing cheerfully in the afternoon sun. She wore a simple, elegant white linen dress, her hair braided beautifully, her face calm, but her eyes carrying a deep, lingering sorrow. She had her boundaries. She had her safety, her wealth, and her family's formidable protection. She had won the war, but her heart remained locked in a silent cell in Korea. Abena's security guards immediately moved forward, their hands resting on their holstered weapons. But Abena raised a hand, stopping them. Her breath hitched in her throat as she saw the man walking down the long driveway. It was Sungmin, but he looked nothing like the Mafia kingpin who used to rule Seoul. He arrived entirely alone. No bodyguards, no expensive tailored suits, no weapons, and no pride. He wore a simple black shirt, his face thin and worn from weeks of sleeplessness, his eyes completely hollowed out by grief. He had traveled thousands of miles across the world, not to reclaim his money or demand his assets, but to surrender his entire being to the woman he had broken. As he reached the edge of the veranda, he stopped, looking up at her through the golden sunlight. The absolute power reversal was complete. He stood before her entirely defenseless, at the mercy of her boundaries, while she looked down at him from a position of absolute strength. "Abena," Sungmin whispered, his voice trembling so violently he could barely form the words. He didn't step onto the porch. He stayed on the gravel, completely lowering his head. "I didn't come for the syndicate. I didn't come for the money. I signed the remaining dissolution papers in Seoul. The Kong syndicate is gone. My mother is safe, but my old life is completely dead. I walked away from all of it." Abena watched him, her heart pounding against her ribs with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. The slow-burn love they had guarded for years was still there, burning fiercely beneath the pain of his betrayal. "Why are you here, Sungmin?" she asked, her voice soft but unyielding. "Because an empire means nothing if I have to look at it without you." Sungmin wept, his chest heaving as he completely sacrificed his pride, his status, and his old identity before her. "Take everything I ever owned. Keep the wealth, keep the properties. But please, Abena, don't make me live in a world where I cannot hear your voice. I will sleep on your floor. I will work as a common soldier for your family. I will spend the rest of my days earning a single glance from you. Just let me be near my family. Let me prove to you that I choose love over power." Abena walked down the steps of the veranda, her heels pressing into the soft earth until she stood directly over him. She looked at his tears, at the genuine, absolute vulnerability of a man who had torn down his own throne just to find her. The pain of the past weeks began to dissolve, replaced by a quiet, profound certainty. He had earned his reunion, not through strength or threats, but through the ultimate sacrifice of his control. She slowly reached her hands down, her fingers finally closing around his trembling wrists, and gently pulled the king of Seoul up from the dirt. "Get up, Sungmin," she whispered, her voice breaking with a soft, beautiful warmth as her eyes met his. "A dragon does not kneel in the dirt. But from now on, we build our home on truth. No more secrets, No more empires. Sung-min pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her neck as he held her with a desperate, relieved tightness, while his twin boys came running through the grass, laughing as they threw their small arms around their parents' legs. The chaos of the Mafia world was gone, replaced by a quiet, satisfying calm beneath the warm African sun. Thank you all so much for staying with me until the very last sentence of this emotional journey. Writing Abena and Sung-min's story of sacrifice, power, and earned love has been an unforgettable experience, and having you here to share it makes it truly special. Before you leave our quiet sanctuary tonight, please take a final moment to subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts on their reunion, and share this story with someone who believes that true love is always worth the ultimate sacrifice. Sleep well, and I will see you in our next story.